From the campus of the University of Nebraska at Omaha. Consider This, a program of issues and information behind today's news.
Hi everyone, I'm Kathy Wyatt. Welcome to the 26th season and this week's edition of Consider This. Our topic, Tech Nebraska. Joining us to talk more about it are Brian Sloan, President of Nebraska Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and Chris Dill. Chris is the Chief Information Officer for Kiewit Corporation. Thank you both so much for being here and welcome.
Thank you.
Brian, I want to start with you. December 16th, 2022, a big day for you, but really for the state of Nebraska. Why?
Well, we were actually hosting our first technology conference combining business and the University of Nebraska to talk about technology in Nebraska, and we had the opportunity to announce that we're forming a new trade association around technology to really bring everyone in the state who's in the technology business together to really drive the technology branding for one, but really to make Nebraska a top 10 technology state.
When you talk about specific goals, Brian, what are you talking about?
So we're talking about how do we integrate technology from a business standpoint into all of our core industry segments, whether it's agriculture or manufacturing or transportation or construction. The future of the economy of our state, I'm not exaggerating, depends on it.
Okay, and you are wasting no time getting started. You are in the process of inviting senior level and technology officers to the table. Who are we talking about here?
So this is the key, and let me caution everyone. I once was a programmer, but I've been a lawyer and accountant for most of my period. The really important thing is to get all of the pieces of the ecosystem together, whether it's people like Chris who really run operations and tech operations within our largest companies or our largest industries, along with the inventors, the entrepreneurs, the financiers, to really create something that looks like the Silicon Valley, only here in Nebraska.
Okay, Chris, as he mentioned, you are one of those people. Before we talk about your involvement with Tech Nebraska, tell us about your extensive background.
Sure. Well, it starts with the fact that I'm a Nebraska native. So I grew up in Sarpy County, and so the state means an awful lot to me. And you know, I've been in technology for 30 years in and around the Omaha area mostly. Worked for a number of companies, large and small. I've been on the vendor side. I've been in a service provider, and I've been now in a large enterprise, Kiewit, for the last 9 years. And so I've seen the evolution over that time of how technology has changed generally, how it has changed in Nebraska, how it impacts companies. And I think what we're here to talk about today is so timely because there's not an industry, to Brian's point, that this doesn't touch anymore. And so we've got to be aware and really out in front of that to make sure we are feeding that need across the state.
Well, I have to ask you because you alluded to it, the evolution. So at the start of the program, we showed a 2-minute video. Thoughts as you were watching that?
Well, I thought it was depicting my technology career. You know, it started with a ringing phone. I was a telephony engineer at the beginning of my career, which that job doesn't even exist anymore almost 30 years later. So that tells you how much it's changed over time. But the back half of the video depicts what we're all, as technologists, faced with every day. We're in an extremely high-tech world now. That's an understatement. We are in a highly connected world now. And those things don't just make themselves work. It takes entrepreneurs that create those innovations. And it takes people like me, although much smarter people than me, to operate it and make those things available to consumers, to businesses, and more and more, just about every job has some technology component, some requirement of having some technological skills. And so I think the definition of who is a technologist changes over time, and that too is really important for us to have our eye on and be planning for as we go forward.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, as we talk now in 2023 and we talk technology, I mean, I can imagine the things that come to mind for you, but just for your general person, like myself, what are we talking when we talk technology?
Well, I think it starts with almost all of us carry a smartphone around with us just about 24 hours a day anymore, right? I mean, that connectivity, the power of the computing that we carry on ourselves, you know, this is a well-worn analogy, but, you know, your iPhone's more powerful than the computers that sent people to the moon in 1969. That's a fact. So it's getting more complex, it's getting more powerful. The things that those devices can do, the unbelievable things that they enable are what impacts our daily lives more and more. And I think over time you just don't even realize it anymore. You know, you have smart devices all over your home, connected devices all over your home. You go out in public and it's all over stores there. Whether you like it or not, they know what you're up to. They know your buying habits. It's everywhere. We are in a high-tech world at this point. And so when I think about technology, it starts there. And then, of course, when I think about it in terms of our business and how that evolves rapidly, it's an interesting time for sure.
Well, you mentioned business, so help us a little bit here. Because this does run such a wide gamut, when we talk business, we're not just talking about Kiewit anymore. Tell us, what are we really talking about here?
Right. You know, 10 years ago, Kiewit's an engineering and construction company. You would not have put construction in the top 20 industries that you could have listed off the top of your head that you would think of in terms of being a high-tech business. If you walked onto a Kiewit construction project now, you would be amazed at the amount of technology that is in our people's hands all day, every day. They are interacting with data and information, mobile devices that, you know, our foremen and superintendents on construction projects are walking around. They're inputting information. They're getting insights back in real time about how their operations are performing. Are we on track? Are we not? Are we on schedule? Are we not? Do we have the labor we need, or do we need more? It's unbelievable. You would not have thought that certainly 10 years ago when you would have thought about high-tech industries. I think that's an example of the fact that whether you talk about manufacturing, agriculture, and on and on and on, I don't know an industry that it hasn't touched. And that's a really important, I think, fact not to be ignored or underestimated as we think about how do we enable businesses in Nebraska to be not only competitive but leaders.
Okay, thank you. So Brian, how are we doing here in the state of Nebraska? And as you're responding, we're going to put up a graphic for our viewers. But just tell us how we're doing and how we compare to other states.
We're doing pretty well. I mean, you see from that graphic, it's a significant part of our GDP. That's probably 2 to 3% of our GDP. And we do have a lot of tech jobs because there are just a lot of tech jobs in our industries. I don't think people really appreciate that. But to really be a top 10 technology state, we need to take the next step, the next leap in terms of integrating technology within our core segments. So we need, let me take agriculture as an example. We need to move to what is called precision farming, which is really taking the technology to the field or the feedlot and really integrating it so that we actually produce some of the highest quality agriculture products in the world that consumers could actually trace all the way back exactly what they're eating, what they're consuming, and the quality that we have here in Nebraska, we can actually brand around that.
Wow. And Chris, when he talks technology jobs, and you've mentioned a little bit about all of this, but specifically technology jobs, give us some examples.
Sure. Yeah, I think people first go to software engineers. They think about applications being built, whether that's applications on the internet or applications you run on your smartphone or your mobile devices. It goes well beyond that now. There are systems engineers that are the people behind those application folks that run the infrastructure that those applications run on. So as you see those big data centers being built in Sarpy County and now in Northwest Omaha, and it seems like more popping up all the time, that's what those centers are. That's the infrastructure that runs those applications. So there are high-tech engineers that run those facilities, cybersecurity professionals. Every time you connect a device or an application to the internet, there is somebody on the other side that if given the opportunity, would love to do some harm in terms of maybe your financials or maybe your personal information. So cybersecurity professionals that keep the bad guys away, if you will, are critical to, I would say, not only enterprises like ours, but really all businesses, big and small. And so, you know, we have, and then you have quasi-technical roles. This is where it just keeps creeping out. Things like just running payroll in a large enterprise anymore. That's not a paper exercise when you're paying 30, 35, 40,000 people. That's a technical exercise. And we have technical people who do nothing but maintain our payroll systems, for instance. So it's just, you know, that definition is ever evolving, and the more technology embeds itself in our lives and businesses, the more we need technical people that enable that.
I don't think we can talk about this topic without addressing the education and the training piece, because I think there may be viewers out there who are thinking, wow, this is pretty overwhelming. I'm not a techno person, so how could I possibly do that? In this day and age, what are we talking when we are wanting to properly prepare somebody to come into one of these jobs that you've just described?
Well, we have a great university system, so we have a great foundation in Nebraska to build from. And I think our universities and colleges are doing a great job, I really do. We are involved, many of our larger businesses in the state are involved in helping shape curriculum at not only the big university campuses, but on down. But that can't be a static practice, because it is ever evolving. The skills that we need young people to have coming into the workforce change and evolve, and so we're constantly working with the universities to keep up with that. I think reskilling people is at least as important as educating our folks coming into the workforce. When I came into technology 30 years ago, you could be a mainframe operator and make a career of that. Technology evolves too fast anymore. There's no such thing as making a 30-year career out of one skill, and so we invest heavily in our employees, and I know most companies do, to just upskill and reskill our folks as that technology evolves. So I think there's two components to it that are equally important. One is people coming into the workforce and attracting them into those technical jobs, and two is once they're there, making sure their skills are evolving and staying current so that they are productive at all points of their career.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Sounds great over there, but yet more can and should be done, right, to improve the world of technology, especially here in the state. Give us some for examples.
Yeah, so I would say some for examples is identifying opportunities to change our processes in a way that takes advantage of technology. And let me give you an example in terms of manufacturing. So when I started in one of my very first jobs was programming in a language called RPG2 that I doubt even exists anymore on little punch cards for an insurance company. And what technology in your earlier video presentation showed was technology gave us the ability to store a lot more data and access it. And it gave us the ability to do some analysis on that data. But what we're really talking about now is fully automating processes by combining not only immense greater data capability with artificial intelligence and also with the human element to allow people to solve problems that they could never solve before. So in manufacturing, what you will see in a lot of the manufacturing today is taking the routine jobs out of manufacturing, automating that, and really turning everybody who works in a manufacturing plant into an analyst, into somebody who operates at a very high technical level. They may or may not need a 4-year degree, but everybody is developing this technology capability, and their productivity is off the charts compared to the productivity 20 years ago.
Wow. And okay, so you're bringing in people like Chris, who's here in the state, but you also are conferring with folks outside the state and partnering with them as well. Talk about that a little bit.
Absolutely. Most of our companies now at this point, because of the workforce shortage, have employees all over. I would think that Chris does as well. But you're all networked. And so you can go find talent anywhere in the world right now to solve your problems. And technology is giving us the capacity in Nebraska. At this point, you can run a global corporation like Kiewit. You can run a global corporation from anywhere in Nebraska, and it doesn't have to be Omaha. It could be Wahoo or Chadron or Imperial or anywhere else. We've passed the point where geography matters.
Okay, you did mention something that is on the minds of so many, and that is the workforce shortage. How is that impacting what you're trying to do right now?
All of it comes together. So the workforce shortage is primarily the product of we just have lower births than we had even when I was born. There's thousands less births in Nebraska, and it's true across the country. In my generation, the boomers, we're the biggest generation. We're the fastest growing generation in Nebraska in terms of population 60 to 70. This workforce shortage is here for the next 20 years. Technology is an important, I would argue, critical point of that. Is our state economically is really strong, and we can be and continue to be a top 10 state as long as we can automate fast enough and develop more productivity per person through technology applications. And that's exactly, I would say Kiewit has been one of the most technologically progressive companies in the state over the last 10 years. I won't give all the credit to Chris, but they have. They recognized 10 years ago that they had to become a technology company to succeed in a business that has gone on for a very long time. That's true in every one of our businesses, and we're seeing it. The product of that is young people coming back to the state. And I'm seeing it every day. I travel the state. I'm seeing young people not only in Omaha and Lincoln, but in every community in the state coming back because these are interesting jobs where you can really do important and global things from anywhere you want to.
Okay. Brian, and you've mentioned this a little bit, but talk more about the process involved. You are, I want to remind the viewers, in the early stages of this initiative, just having announced it in December. So as you sit here right now, what does your day-to-day, other than recruiting great people like Chris, involve in making sure that this thing continues to move forward in the way that you want it to?
Right, so I think this concept of putting a trade association around technology is really important. I'm obviously biased. I run the largest business trade association in the state, so I will say that at the meeting. But what we do as trade associations is we connect. We connect businesses and industries across the state. We've done it for over 100 years. There's lots of great technology organizations within the state and within the city of Omaha. It's not to have one technology organization. It's to do what we do at the state chamber, only do it specifically around technology, is how do we connect all these people? It's a very large geographic state. There's lots of communities. And how do we connect the Chris's of the world, but how do we also connect them to the inventors and the entrepreneurs and create that environment? That's what's going to supercharge our ability to be a technology state.
Okay, and when we talk benefits, if we were to put up bullet points for our viewers, benefits to the state of Nebraska with this organization, what would those be?
So Blueprint Nebraska, which was a economic report produced in 2019 that we were part of, and 6,000 people actually participated in it in 2019. What's a strategic economic plan for Nebraska? One of the statistics that came out of that was that in an ordinary job in Nebraska, on average, you get a 2-to-1 return, the state does, in terms of employment of additional person. And that's been our economic development process for years. For every job we attract, we get a 2-to-1 benefit. If that job is technology enabled, that's a 5-to-1 return. And so to the extent we take and we incorporate technology within our jobs in this state, the return is over twice as big.
Okay. Challenges, Brian. What do you anticipate to be the greatest challenges as you move forward?
I'd be interested in Chris's views on this as well, because he's in the day-to-day. From a statewide basis, the biggest challenges are simply keeping up and solving problems that have never been solved before. For what Chris does every day, there's no handbook. These companies are solving new challenges with new technologies every day. And for us, it's a matter of how do we create that environment where, because of these connections, we can leverage each other and we can create a workforce out there with great capabilities and skill sets, and working with our colleges and universities and even working with our high schools around this process is going to create that environment. Our job as a trade association is to create that environment, so we really are a top 10 state. But Chris may have a different view in terms of the nitty-gritty of how you get there.
Well, I think, one, I don't dwell on challenges much. I'm a much bigger fan of opportunities. But I think, this is a competitive situation. We're not the only state in our region that's thinking this way and thinking that they need to get serious about this. Other states, in terms of associations like this in our region, are ahead of us. And so I think the time is now to do something. We need to keep, this stating the obvious, we need to keep our young people here. So many of our young best and brightest, they want to go experience somewhere else for a while and then maybe come back. And how do we make this a place that they want to start and stay? I think is one huge opportunity. And beyond that, I think the ongoing educational part of this is a challenge. As a large company, we maybe have some advantages in terms of funding those efforts. How do you help medium and small size businesses take that on, that ongoing education, that upskilling and reskilling of people? I think that's a challenge that collectively we can talk about, and that's the beauty, I think, of this organization, is bringing everybody together to talk about those kinds of things.
So Brian, you've succeeded when what?
You succeeded when there's a buzz about Nebraska, and it's a national buzz. And they say, because almost every child today, if you ask them what they want to be, and so we go around, we meet with people in 8th grade and senior high and even elementary. And you ask these young people, what do you want to be? They all want to be technology people. They may not have a view of it. And historically, in my day, you would say, well, then I need to move to California, the Silicon Valley, or I need to move to the Triangle. When the coolest, and I think they will be, when the coolest technology companies are in Nebraska, and there's a buzz about Nebraska, and it's starting and you can see it. One of my favorites is to tell kids, so what is the coolest sports technology company in the world? It's Huddle in Lincoln. The coolest agricultural technology companies are going to be here. The coolest fintechs are going to be here. The coolest construction technology is going to be here. That's when we're successful.
So the coming months are going to involve what?
Really putting the pieces together. I don't think most people know what's already here. And so a lot of it's going to be education in terms of pulling these people together, but then we have a job as a trade association to make sure our state policymakers, our state legislature, our governor, that the population en masse knows what's already here. that there is so much technology already in the state, but people don't know it, and building that brand.
I have to ask, the collaborative piece being so important here. If we have viewers who are watching, and maybe they themselves are not thinking that they want to be a part of this, but they maybe know somebody who would be a great fit, what does that entail? I mean, how do they get a hold of you, or what's the process there, Chris?
Well, the great thing is, prior to the introduction in December, enough structure was put in place that the contact information for this organization is available. Brian probably knows better than I where they can readily get their hands on it.
Yeah. So right now, I think you're going to flash my contact information at the end. Anybody can contact me today, but by February there will be a website, and it'll be clearly identified as Tech Nebraska, and people can coordinate there. But I think what you're going to find is, in the end, this network is going to be so big that you're going to know somebody connected if you're in the industry.
Yeah.
And that's really important, even for young people trying to connect with jobs or internships or something like that. It's really his colleagues, as well as the innovators and inventors. How do we connect those? And I think the goal is to make sure we connect them in a way that is on their phone.
Okay, thank you. Chris, I'm going to give you the final word here. 30 seconds or so.
Sure.
What do you want to leave us with?
Well, that this impacts everybody. I think that's the biggest thing. People shouldn't have to think too long and hard to think about where technology impacts their life and where it impacts our economy. And I think we're all proud Nebraskans. Everywhere I go, I run into people who are proud to be here and from here. And I think that's it. Is we're finally getting serious in terms of coming together and creating a format and an organization that can attack this problem in real and impactful ways.
Talking about Tech Nebraska with Chris Still and Brian Sloan. Folks wanting more information can go right here to the Nebraska Chamber of Commerce and Industry. You've got the website, you have the email address there, and the phone number. Gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for being here and sharing your time and expertise, and wish all of you involved in this the best of luck.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
You bet. And thank you all for watching. We'll see you next week.
Consider This is an issues and information program produced by UNO Television. More information and program archives can be found at nebraskapublicmedia.org/considerthis. If you'd like to share your comments about this program, call UNO Television at 402-554-2516 during regular business hours, or send an email to cwyatt@unomaha.edu.